Hey guys, my name is Kaspar Rostov. I'm from Studio Zone, the video game studio that brought you Disco Elysium and Disco Elysium Final Cut. And I do concept art and level design for Disco. And I'm here with Alexander Rostov.
That's me. I'm Alexander Rostov. I'm the art director on Disco Elysium. And today we're going to be looking at some character art and some icon art and kind of talking a little bit about our thoughts and stuff.
I'd like to add that this is not a lecture video. This is more like time travel, where we'll be looking at art from the past and giving you our thoughts about it. So what we're looking at is a random selection of some of the characters from Disco Elysium, and I think around half of these are the ones that I worked on, and the others are that you worked on, Rostov. It's really weird to look at stuff from like 3 and some of these like 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting to see just how different all the concepts are, also in sort of like their what do you call it, like gaggery. It's like style and the way they're done.
Mm-hmm.
Especially seeing sort of like Lena here between the net picker and the washerwoman, which were done by you, and then Elena was like very much done by like one of my characters, done very much in sort of like shorthand and.
Yeah, this one's Lena. Uh-huh.
And then other characters are almost drawn in like a comic booky kind of way.
Mm-hmm. I think it also had to do with the fact that with some of the characters, we were desperately trying to tell a story, and it was in a sort of different, I don't even know, like a development phase of the game. And with some of them, it was like slightly more streamlined. We already knew what we were sort of doing, so it was just trying to figure out some kind of shape language or something like that, and then just going into development.
Mm-hmm. I think somewhere along the line, I also sort of like figured out the Photoshop brushes, which really worked super well for me, and I figured out like a very streamlined kind of like fast and optimal way to make characters,
Mm-hmm.
or at least to draw them and to paint and color them and stuff. And Lena is one of the first characters made, so I'm just like looking at the concept, and it's just it's almost like cheating how much in shorthand and undetailed that my character concept is.
Mm-hmm.
I just leave so much up for like the portrait and what the writers can like do with this character, and very little of it is like sort of embedded into the sketch. While other characters are like much more refined and then already thought through within this concept phase,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess like carry a much more loaded and potent like information package or signal to the writers to
Mm-hmm.
based on like their understanding of the character off of.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know how it was for you. Like for me, the different characters, like all the characters, we always worked together with artists. So writers. So writers would come to us with a brief or with an assignment. Like, we have this kind of character, and they should look something like this or that. I don't know. Maybe it was different for you. You worked on more characters than I did. So like, what I mean by that is that the characters were in very different stages of finish for the writers themselves. So sometimes it was like, I need some kind of imagery to, write their descriptions or something. And at other times you had like a finished character that needed art that would sort of characterize them in the best way.
Yeah, it was like the process wasn't quite like locked down, or there wasn't like a specific ritual
Mm-hmm.
through which all of these characters would be created. which I think worked to our advantage. It sort of like had a more, I don't know, playful aspect to it. I think possibly like gave the chance to sort of like for artists to put more into certain characters, and for other characters they were more sort of like writer driven. Probably get like better variety and a more interesting cast of characters this way, I think. So yeah, it really worked in our favor.
And I think this guy, Roy, I think that was the most structured by the book character design that I saw from the side, and I think it was because it was made like you had to do a blog post about it, so it's like you saved all the little steps and the communication between the artists and going back and forth. I think there are like, I don't know, 10 different variations of like glasses and like vests and haircuts and like stuff like that.
Yeah, we're really doing a performance trying to go out with this character.
Yeah, it's like pretending that we are video game designers. It's like, yeah, let's show the world we know what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen like, you know, post-mortems and stuff where the two characters like that, it's all very, very professional.
But yeah, for me, I don't remember which came first. Was it Rene and Gaston? Rene is this guy, Gaston's this guy, or was it Netpicker? But here you can see like with all of my things, like there's no consistent style or anything like that. Like I did concepts when I think when you were busy with something else and the writer needed something ASAP. So, but yeah, like with René, for example, like designing the uniform, that was the longest process of the whole thing. I think Gaston was just like his character is like a caricature almost.
Yeah, Gaston is, you know, that French old dude. But yeah, with René's character and a few of the other characters as well come like encumbered with this. You're not just designing a character; you also have to like design like, so yeah, what was the uniform of the military for the suzerain and the sort of monarchy of Revachol, and there's a much more involved sort of like design process when you're doing like this world building.
Yeah, world building.
World building, the magic word.
So yeah, something that has to like tell a story, not just of the character, but of the, like the world and a little bit of history, and yeah, and I think it was the first time for me to do something like that. Like even though like I was before I came to Zoom, I was used to drawing figures and doing that kind of stuff. Like my first assignments were to draw chairs and doors. So like doing something like, here's a character and you know, make it look cool. So that was a pretty cool assignment. But that, like, actually for me personally, Netpicker was and is like dearest to me. First of all, I was trying to imitate some kind of painterly language that you were testing out while painting the backgrounds. So I was just like, I think I asked for your brush set, and I was just messing around with the brushes and stuff. And it was Martin Luiga who, I don't know if he was the one who finished the character, but like he gave me the design brief, and like there's that big light sword and this sort of like attractive woman in somewhere in a small fishing village, and yeah, so I was combining like multiple things. I was like trying to find my way painting digitally, and also tell a story of this character.
But the thing that I find like really that really like landed with this design, the concept like carries super well is sort of in the pose and the posture of the character, the almost like manneristically stylized like super long swan neck and the sort of defiant gaze, the sword, of course, and the posture and everything. Like there's a nice knight's a knight's posture almost applied to like a fishing woman. Like
A strong, independent woman.
yeah. So that's like communicated like super well in it, and I think that probably like also fed informed the writers on sort of like really colored their own like understanding of the character, and Netpicker turned out to be the type of character that she is because of like just the like incredibly strong posture in this image.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, also what I like about that character and what ended up in the game, and like I don't mean the personal story of the character, which is awesome by the way, but like the character asset, like 3D model. I have a thing for asymmetrical design, and I think it just looks super cool that she's wearing that raincoat on one shoulder, and gives her like this iconic look. And then she hands you a sword. I mean, the whole thing is like, this is not a medieval role-playing game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the sort of like a lot of the characters that I ended up doing are like this pretty regular, you know, four-limbed symmetric like beasts. But you also got to do
the cool ones.
the scab leader, which is below. Which has some like cool silhouette stuff like going on.
Yeah, it's this guy. I mean, this one, like again, I was sort of testing the capabilities of our animator. I'd like to say animators, but no, it was all Eduardo Rubio who did like the whole video game Disco Elysium from start to finish. Nuts. But basically, like, I don't know if you can see like this little thumbnail here. So I did a bunch of these. They're literally like this big. And I wanted to give him like this iconic sort of silhouette. So what I ended up with, like, the character is like this strong, powerful figure. And he kind of looks like a mecha, like with the jumpsuit rolled down, with like the ill-fitting clothes, and like, does he have 4 arms, or are these boosters behind him? And like, so yeah, that's what I was going for, just basically to get this like cool silhouette. Like in the end, in the game, I think he's animated in a fairly simple way, like he does like stuff like that. Like, it would be cool to see him like running and jumping. Like, I'd like to see him in like a full-on cinematic sequence. Like, this is the potential of this silhouette, basically. Then another character that I did was the washerwoman, and I don't know. I remember this one being fairly straightforward. In the sense that, like, maybe I was even given like a photograph of an old lady, or was it like some quick back and forth with the writer? I think it was Helen, who I was working on Netpicker with.
Yes, quite often we got like photo reference from directors. Sometimes like a very specific one, like the character imagined is exactly this. Please like make it as much as this like as possible. Other times it's just like, here's an array of like 10 different sort of photos, very different, but you know, they're all sort of this.
Yeah, because like the Scab leader, for example, like wasn't he some kind of Greek actor or someone? Or was just like this guy, 1-to-1, do this guy.
He's I've forgotten his name, Peter Dow. He's a political commentator in the United States who had a pretty traumatic character arc himself, which sort of resolved during happened during the making of like Disco Elysium, and I don't know, he was funny stuff was happening. We were like looking at shit that's happening in the world, and somehow like Peter Dow's face was, I guess, inspiring for this character.
I mean, he looks like a scab leader. So yeah, I didn't know that backstory. Like I was handed that like image, and the description is like go.
I think I probably misremembered the name, actually. I know it's, yeah. It's some political commentator guy.
Yeah, memory. This is an episode of time travel. So, but with the net, no, not the net picker, the washerwoman. Yeah. So I think I did like a photo study just to get into the mood, and then did that like in my eyes now really embarrassing sloppy sort of drawing thing, and threw on some color and was like something like this, and Helen was like exactly like this, and you were like yeah, and then it went into modeling, and here we are all those years later.
It's really good. It's still like one of my favorite concepts that you've done.
Thank
Like,
you.
the shapes, the big buff of the jacket, like,
Which is also like a resolved like at thumbnail scale is like the sort of shape language.
yeah, I remember also painting the portrait
Oh
for
yeah.
this character. Yeah, this was like pretty much just like I took your concept as like almost like an underpainting, and just like started painting on top of that. But so the concept already like kind of looks like my grandma. So I just sort of like let my mind drift, and sort of had like my memories of my grandmother as almost like mental reference, and I was like putting this together. And, yeah, it's like a very cute character, and sort of like one of my like quiet little favorites that we've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So hey kids, like a character concept doesn't have to be super awesome. Other people might like it even if you hate it. But yeah, that's kind of like besides the point, because like I think I entered game dev still with the false impression that everything you do has to like look like a Rembrandt or like an Ilya Repin painting or something like that. Like often it is like with your Lena, it's like shorthand just to keep the like wheels turning, and like everybody working towards the same goal, and yeah, some designs changed like radically. We went through different things altogether.
In general, I think I almost have like a design philosophical sort of like standpoint that I try not to solve too many problems at once in a sort of like a single character concept.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes the faces are quite sketchy, like you can see on the gardener or the sort of like other characters around here, and I solve the face later when I'm like doing the portrait or something,
Mm-hmm.
or like even like environment sketches or something. It seems to me ahne, so
Greedy.
greedy to like solve all of the little design questions in the first concept. I like to leave a little bit of like shootsy creative rooms for my fellow compatriots and artists who are,
Mm-hmm.
also enjoy solving creative problems like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I think I indulge too much every now and then, but at some point, like I did a lot of the environment designs. So, and here again, just like with the characters, like sometimes you get a pretty detailed brief. Like there's like an important story point happening in this area, so it has to include this, that, and like you have a whole shopping list of things from the writers. But sometimes it was fairly vague, and then I could sort of just lose myself noodling, drawing like details, thinking of like little stories and like my own interpretations of what's going on there, and then later playing the game and think like, oh, like writers like went off a tangent with this thing, and just like it's a whole new swath of content that came from that, like I don't know, little thing that was drawn somewhere. So yeah, I don't know. It's in that sense, this Gesamtkunstwerk that's a video game is awesome. Like everybody like coming together.
It's very rewarding stuff.
Okay, so this is your drawing, but kind of based on my design.
Wait, yeah, do you have the original sketch?
No, probably somewhere. But like that thing is sort of like in,
Yeah,
in
so
in my character designer career, like the most interesting and rewarding thing that I got to do, which is like Fallout, Black Ops Studios Fallout's power armor design, but for like our own game, and it's just like this really shitty pencil drawing that I labored over a very long time on some kind of like school notebook paper or something like that. So I'm really glad that you made this into like a painting and like this breakdown for was it Rauna or Pasha who modeled this?
partial on it, yeah. Uh, but yeah, so this was quite the endeavor. The sort of like original concept for this like organically patterned ceramic plates that like click it against each other and dissipate the kinetic energy like across the surface of the body armor.
Mm-hmm.
So like the original concept, the idea for it, I guess, came from Robert, like a pretty specific sort of like idea how mechanically the armor should work, and then yeah, Kaspar did the heavy lifting sort of like groundwork design for it, and then I had the sort of like luxury of like from a distance coming in and uh, like it's a lot harder to come up with something from the very foundations, very beginning, and then like solve it and then finish it like all the way to the sort of like finish line. It's a lot easier to, and then also the sort of like the magic of collaboration to like see something that someone has really put like 100% in, and then you can like just put like 20% extra in so that together it's like 120%.
I mean, yeah, this kind of looks it. Mm. But like,
Yeah, I'm really proud of that the kind of stuff that we arrived at in the end.
like the design brief also was sort of like Robert wanted it to be unique. He was like, yeah, it should be ceramic and like the kinetic energy dissipation, but also wanted to some kind of illogical thing. So if you look at it like in all kinds of historical traditional armor, like joints are protected. But here, like the backs of the knees and like you can stab the guy in the kidney through this armor. And like this was a deliberate design choice. I think I remember seeing some kind of maybe it was an art project or something like a ceramic, like beautiful white ceramic samurai armor held together with like red strings. And this was sort of the jumping off point. And then after that, it was like trying to figure out that this layered sort of like tree bark sort of thing. So just like this interesting, like almost fractal patterns, like where you have like these bigger plates and smaller plates, and like ideally, like the process of such a suit of armor, like every suit of armor would be customly tailored to the wearer, so you don't have like any like two identical sets of armor.
Mm-hmm.
So like the world building for that thing is also super cool.
Mm-hmm. Some of the shapes that are in this armor, uh, there's like a few various sort of like places where some ideas were stolen from. There's a unfortunately I don't remember the name of this fashion designer who made his pieces in a process where he like wrapped fabric around like the human body,
Mm-hmm.
and then fucking cryo freezed it or somehow like got it to be like stiff and fragile so that when you like
Mm-hmm.
bend the arm, you sort of like you could break the material. You
Okay.
would figure out the you know the pattern, the cut of the like garment, like where are these sort of like tension lines and how do they resolve?
Mm-hmm.
these sort of like organic shard-like shapes that originate from it. It's like very interesting aesthetic, and the sort of like look and feel of this armor references the sort of like the aesthetic of that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
At other times, sort of like the chest plate is like, has like this the two lungs kind of thing going on, and has like anatomical moments in there. But then all in all, the game is set in sort of like this alternate history modernity time period of modernity, of like industrial production and the sort of aesthetic of that era. So this armor is like way sci-fi and futuristic looking and like very strange, and to sort of like bring it back and ground it into it a little bit, then it has that like doinky looking kind of alien but surprisingly fitting like World War One British soldier helmet thing. There was steel plate which is like pumped into like a helmet shape, and there you go, which adds this like grounds it into like this time period.
And so yeah, in the game we like the player cannot find all the pieces of the armor to wear, so he always has to like the player has to mix and match with some other things, but like the three characters that wear the armor, only one of them wears the helmet, and Ruud with his rifle, I don't know, he looks like a super soldier. So like that design came together like really well, and yeah, the voice acting and the writing for that stuff as well. It's really awesome to see that sort of come to life in the video game. But yeah, this I think it almost covers the characters that I drew for the game. Was there some? Yeah, I don't remember right now. I also included some of the inventory art here because not that it has much to do with the character design and characters that we were just talking about, aside from the fact that the inventory icons include all the wearable items in the game. But I wanted to talk about like the design part that deals with readability and how it's tied with the character design. Like in my opinion, if you remember, we like rethought the whole character design pipeline from like concept sketch to modeling to animating like three times. Like at first we thought that we can sort of come up with some kind of modular system where we can assemble characters from parts. Similarly unsuccessful attempt that we considered using for level design. And then we moved away from that. But I don't like for some kind of technical reason we oh no, it wasn't technical. The third time I think was the aesthetic choice to sort of push the readability of characters or something like that. So we started like gamifying them a little bit. I don't know, I might remember. How do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, we at first we did try to do the optimize, so like the wise beyond our years from the get-go, and design of combining characters out of like pants and jackets and like different heads, like you would from in like a role-playing game. But then, unfortunately, sort of like mid-development, we just saw that it doesn't look good, man. It doesn't have the character. And then we're like sort of like there's a couple of characters in the game that still use it for like basically legacy reasons that were like not good enough or like not enough time to.
I think Lena's one, right?
Lena is one of them. Yeah, I feel so. Okay, that's one that I feel really bad about.
That's her.
Yeah, it's like such a charming character. Like I just really feel that we owed it to her to like give her like a special, unique character model that's really modeled from the get go, sort of taking into consideration like all the peculiarities. Cause like she's in a wheelchair and the clothes that she's wearing and stuff. The way that it's just very obvious in the game that it's just like 3D models floating, in proximity to each other that take the shape of this character. I think Lena deserved better than that. Alas, this is the reality that we live in.
But now coming from characters back to the inventory icons, like again, the user interface that you were designing that stuff. I think you did all of the UI, like menu by menu or something. But I didn't see that happen because it was like you disappeared for a week or two, and then you came back with like finished stuff. Like afterward, when digging in the Photoshop files, I saw that there were iterations. So you must have been working with somebody. Like,
yeah, the UI curves went through several iterations, and it was a nightmare, and still is a bit of a nightmare really to handle. And I don't know, it keeps breaking. We have to fix it all the time. But in the sort of original inventory design, to illustrate just how amateur we were, you didn't even have the big art.
The preview thing at the top?
Yeah. You just had like the name of the image, a description for it, and then like the inventory grid, which is incredibly unsatisfying when you like click on like an inventory item and you don't see a big picture of it. It just makes you angry at a game if you can't like take a look at the stuff that you're like carrying around. So sort of like midway through development, after like already doing like various artistic experimentations on the item icons, doing all sorts of like explorations into like modernity and like Kaspar was channeling some Cezanne like into like the item icons. Somewhere like halfway through the development, we had to sort of like reconsider and repaint all of our item icons to like bring them up to this like detailed fidelity, so that they would also work as like this large illustration when you actually click on them in the inventory.
I seem to remember it slightly differently. I think it was like I was doing the first round on all the icons, and I was like three quarters through the whole batch. It was an endless process. You come into work, you're like, okay, here we go. First icon in the evening, like I did 4 today. And like some days were faster. It's just like, but there were hundreds of these. And I think at one point I was like, yeah, it's a really limiting thing. I was showing you something like, I wish we could look at it as a large thing. And I think you were like, but why don't we? And we were like, why don't we? And I did a quick mock-up in inventory, like, maybe we could like do a big one. And we're like, okay, let's see if we can make that happen. And it was the way we designed the way we programmed the user interface, like making changes is a real pain in the ass. Was then and is now. And but that thing was like somehow came together really quickly and like changed the whole inventory experience basically.
Sort of in hindsight, fairly obvious things that we like also stumbled upon and then had to account for was at first we were sort of like doing these in a very kind of like freewheeling kind of way. So you would have your jackets, you would make your jacket icon to sort of present each individual item in its like best light. So you have the fuck the world jacket, and like it would make sense to have like the back of the jacket say it proudly. But then once you have a bunch of these sort of like lined up on your screen, it just becomes like so much visual noise, and it's impossible to pick out like where it's jackets or like to distinguish between the different categories of items. It's just like it's not a very pleasant experience to sort through all of your stuff when it looks like that. So we learned pretty quickly that you need to have you need to standardize aspects of like stuff that you show in grids like this. So all the jackets ended up being like very like symmetric, front like head on. I think there's something like the stuff that you can put into your hand is all like tilted one way. Other stuff is like tilted the other way, so that there is a sort of like a systematic and a system to the visuals. So at a glimpse, you can sort of like have an understanding of what category an item belongs in. That's like a learning moment.
And it's still crazy to see some like in the final versions of the items, like some of the things are very close to the initial sort of like lasso tool silhouettes. And there's other stuff, like for example, for me, like I really, I don't know, something happened, so I was like really working on all of the health items, but in the end you only see the tiny icon when you pick them up, and then they go into your like health item slot. So like all that wasted time. I did learn like a lot of interesting things about digital painting during the process, but yeah, that was sort of funny. And some other stuff that like for example, it took forever sort of to nail down this thing, and I think it went between you and me like 3 times or something like that, just like the icon of this helmet, and yeah, we don't have the sort of the gloves here, but I think I did like 2 or 3 different takes, and the stuff that ended up in the game is finally like your edition, where you like fix something with like a few big bold brushstrokes, basically.
I think that was sort of one of the main things that we ran up against, is that you sort of like get a little bit lost in like noodling away at the details, or sort of like this micro level expressive brushwork when you're doing it, and then you just like have to take a step back and okay, I have to put like a really big like wide brushstroke onto something to simplify it for iconic purposes, basically. There was something that painting like the various jackets and stuff, I really learned to understand one-step value change differences in shading and painting. It's like the really subtle like ways that you almost don't perceive how like a color is darker than another color, and how it like turns to form only a little bit. I tend to be a very like bravado, expressive sort of like painter. Like the more contrast, the better. So painting the item icons like really made me like see that, really appreciate like the micro contrast between and how to use this in sort of like rendering.
I mean, one of the reasons why I really wanted to see the icons as larger icons, because I think like one of the early compromises was like, okay, so when you pick up the item, then the icon becomes larger, and when you hold it, you can look at it. But it's the dice, the custom dice that you can get from Dice Maker. Like one of them has a mosquito in them. Like it's not in this layout, but like it's a detail you like. I have 20/20 or however you call that vision, where you can see stuff like from 70 blocks away, and even I like playing the game, I was like, where's that mosquito? And it did like, because of like the type of bug a mosquito is, it didn't make sense to make it into like a caricature of a fat mosquito or something, like, I don't know. Even though it would have been cool if it were bloated,
swollen,
in trapped in amber. Oh my god, it's like a lost design opportunity.
Oh no, call back all copies. We have to redo the whole thing.
Maybe we can patch it in. But yeah, I think we went on a tangent here. But basically, yeah, it was like it took us a very long time, years basically, to figure out like the final look of the inventory icon similarly to how the characters look in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But in that sense, yeah, like a shout out to Black Isle Studios' Baldur's Gate games, which had, I think, still have like some of the best inventory art ever. It's just like these beautifully rendered pencil drawings, and I'm not even kidding. It's some of the stuff that actually got me into art, because I think I was always drawing, but I never, I don't know, as a kid you don't consider becoming a drunk painter who dies early and then becomes famous as a valid career choice. But after seeing like all of these things, it was like, I had to buy this game. Like, this is, somebody pays somebody for this to happen. And yeah, it's still some of my favorite art.
Yeah, no, those pencil sketches, like they taught me like how like as a dungeon master, how I should draw the magic weapons that I've been dealing out to my friends, the players, and stuff. Really magical stuff, basically. Just the Baldur's Gate series like really teaches you the important, like you really see the importance of the magical moment of like looking at the sketch of this like item. It is really, at least for me, I'm the type of person where the whatever like status effects and I don't know, this like mace, I don't know, there's like ice damage or some shit. It's pretty cool, I guess, but it's really about like clicking on it and then seeing the like intricate like Da Vinci-esque like tongue out of the corner of your mouth, like really rendered like sketches and stuff. That was where the magic happened for me.
But the funny thing about that is that early on, when the user interface looked nothing like it does in the final game, that was also like some time when we were exploring alternative ways of showing the items. And like, I remember I tried to channel that Baldur's Gate sort of vibe and do like pencil sketches of things. And that's when I realized that even though I had spent years like doing perceptive drawing, like drawing from nature, like I was a really, really, really bad designer and had no idea at all of like what constitutes good design in a drawing. Like trying to take something like, I think the first thing I tried doing was that the protagonist was wearing actually like a different type of shirt with the frills and like very baroque. And so I was trying to draw that dress shirt, but it's like, okay, but how do you take a dress shirt and make it into an icon? So it has to, like, again, it has to read as a shape. And how do you stylize it so that you can see like all the necessary details? And like in that sense, yeah, that still the Baldur's Gate stuff is just like beats anything that came afterwards. Like crazy. I mean,
yeah.
Did you want to add something?
No, I think like those are my thoughts and icons.
Okay. Yeah, I included portraits here. Like, it would make sense to talk about like character portraits, a really big part of Disco Elysium, and like in the same breath as the rest of character design. But I think
that's like another week.
Yeah, let's call this a wrap, and devote another video for this stuff. So.
Teaser, very clever.
Yeah, and on this cliffhanger, thank you for watching, and see you soon.
See you soon.
Hey there, my name is Kaspar Rostov. I'm from Zome Studio, the video game studio that brought you Disco Elysium and Disco Elysium Final Cut. For Disco Elysium, I did various concept art and level design. And I'm here with Alexander Rostov.
That's me. I'm Alexander Rostov. I'm the art director on Disco Elysium. And then with me in this special day and moment.
The studio mascot.
confused at what's happening. So that's us. Let's get down to what is it that we're talking about today.
Wait, I'm looking at this internet fame animal. We'll be talking about character portraits and skill portraits, and their role in Disco Elysium. So, yeah, okay. I have one of those, one of the charts with the characters in front of us. So, yeah, you painted like 6,000 character portraits, and
yeah, that was sort of altogether mega projects that just like you keep it rolling throughout the sort of like the 5 or 6 years of development, however long that was. Like as new characters sort of like come up and are developed and put into the game and stuff, then I need to like work on put those portraits in, baby. Yeah, that took a long time. These sort of like the immense time span that they were painted across also means that the style and approach in the portraits like this changes over time, both as like you grow and develop as an artist. In terms of like understanding of what you're trying to achieve slightly shifts, and then also because like the characters themselves are also individually different, and this sort of warrants always or quite often like a unique or interesting approach to their specific portrait. And so it's quite eclectic.
But like personally, I really like the portraits. But did you ever consider using 3D models or anything like that instead? Not really.
Not really, yeah. I just like drawing faces. That's my like main thing. My like basic doodle, or whenever I'm at, like a meeting, it's like you get the hand twitch, you need to like draw something, and just start doodling, like coming up with faces and then interesting characters and stuff. Yeah.
I think I have a similar thing, but I just have that one face that I draw over and over and over again. It's like I should burn half of my sketchbooks.
Everybody has that face. My face I have stolen from Mignola. It is the primary characteristic of that face that I sometimes draw is
the sunken in cheekbone.
Mike Mignola does like, I don't know, half the characters Mike Mignola draws has like super like refined and defined like the silhouette in that place. And then yeah, that's good shit. You can tell like half the character's life story just by the shape of like this moment in their face.
But how did are there any of the earlier portraits in this spread? No, maybe not in this one, but
I think Glacia was one of the earliest portraits that I did.
Yeah, and she went in almost unchanged from like the earlier designs. Kim is also.
Yeah, Kim, your own portrait, Kim and Glacia, I think, was the first one. Kim and your portrait as a character, I think, were sort of like done even before like any like real development in the stylization for the portrait had been done. And these are just sort of like almost illustrations. I don't know how obvious this is, but to me they look like almost from a different world compared to like a lot of the other portraits. And Glacia was sort of the first character who was painted after like some thought had been put into the technique that should the technique for the portraits basically. So it's just like heavy use of this like graphic shapes and then simplifying all the like sort of blacks together into big simple shapes and then putting on like a limited palette of colors to sort of like try and use the color scape to get to something at the character and their personality. For Glacia, sort of the main thing that's like really inspired that really like hooked the character for me was the fringe of the hair like really low on the eyes. it's like really like puts the eyes into the shadow and then like obscures like the eyebrows, which are the incredibly important to read someone's like character and their personality and their mood and stuff. And then since Glacia is it's like this like character mystery, then hiding the eyebrows was like an important moment. In when I came to that, it was like, this is it. This is now Glacia.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you mentioned Mike Mignola, so like a lot of these, if not most of these, and even the ones that are slightly more painted, there's still like that very graphic underpinning. We can look at a short clip soon where you can see some of the process. But basically, like you start with like a black and white thing where you block in the big proportions and big shadow shapes, and then you basically paint into it.
Something like that. Yeah. Sort of. Oftentimes, I notice one of the first things I do is I try to put down the shadow of the nose.
Mm-hmm.
Then the rest of the face like grows around it, and also maybe it's because it's so central to the face. The nose like, right there in the middle, or maybe there's some subconscious understandings there that the nose is the eye, is the nose is the window to the human soul or something. I'm not sure, but it's always like a landmark that I try to put down first.
I mean, I really like this because, like, in art school, that's the opposite of what teachers tell young students. It's like, you never start from the nose or eyes or anything, like big shapes first. But yeah, I've also noticed that like getting some kind of like jawline or nose line in is like helps define something that I can grasp onto. Like,
But yeah, do we check the video?
Sure. Okay, now we're gonna have to. We're recording a different screen, so there you go. So you want to sync this? You ready? 3, 2, 1, play.
Play.
So this is a Procreate recording, and I don't know. It seemed to me like a couple of years into development, when we discovered Procreate, something happened.
It's like it's amazing, basically. The sort of the dream of having this like slab that you can just break out anywhere, that like has a self illuminated screen, so you're like independent from like light conditions outside and stuff. It's just a really great way to paint. Man, this video is fast. We're already past the kid. So this is a portrait of the cleaning lady. I guess you can see me sort of like putting together the sketch here, sort of trying to imitate a little bit of like a charcoal workflow. But an important sort of thing when I was thinking about this is when I put it together, I wanted to have the broom in the image. So cleaning lady broom, it's like a part of the identity of this person. But I also wanted it to have like this, this grip. It's like a rifle grip from like after Red Guards or something. I think I've seen a grip like this in some like a big like Soviet parade photo, or like the Red Guards meeting Lenin or something somewhere. So it's the weapon, it's the tool, it's like her sort of like power symbol and stuff. So I wanted to get like a really like an anatomical kind of like grip on it. So, and in general, sort of like this grim determination of like, these hallways will be cleaned.
Yeah, I think we're reaching the end of the video.
Also, like temperature experimentations in the end. Always in digital painting, there's like a thing that oftentimes happens that a lot of like digital painters do is because the sort of like medium itself is so malleable, then Oftentimes, you finish a painting and the painting has looked a certain way, and you've rendered all of your decisions, putting down like this like cold blue here or this like warm light there within the context of how the picture looks right now. And then at the very end, you take out like a level slider or like some like color effect, and you just like completely change the image. And it feels incredibly good in the end because like all of a sudden this image that you've gotten very tired of becomes so fresh again. It always seems like, this was the genius move. Now it became good. And oftentimes this is a mistake. You just get blinded by the novelty of the effect. And if you sometimes maybe like come back a few days later and you look at what you did, it's like,
I mean, yeah, that's something like I've noticed with most things. It's like if you do like an intense bout of painting, then you sort of need to take at least a few days off, depending on the I don't know, size and complexity of the project, to get the fresh eyes. Otherwise, you get used to certain things, and you also get fixated on certain mistakes. Like I found that like 2 months is the optimal time. Like 2 months go past, you look at it again, then you have like the most objective sort of perspective on things. Like
2 months is magical.
Mm-hmm.
There's also you can also even have like the one day after is kind of like we're still feeling it, still remember what it felt like last night. So you can like kind of go in there and like work off of that. 1 week later is like also a very specific sort of like you still faintly remember remember the aroma in your nose or something. 2 months where you can have like this clinical understanding of an image.
I mean, but then again, there's like also the flip side is I think one of the worst feelings is when you're working late into the night on this like I don't know, it's like a bipolar high or something like that, and you're super excited and this is like genius. You just like made a breakthrough, and then you pass out exhausted. You wake up, you go open up the file or look at the painting, and it's not good. Like it's really bad. So in that sense, yeah, like this is crazy. I'm back in the Magma studio looking at like the greed of the portraits, and this is just a lot of portrait work.
At the bottom here we have the rubies and archers, collision worship archer, radio operators, portraits right next to each other. Which is quite fortunate because these two are among my favorite portraits in the game.
These two?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, like time got so tight on making this ELYSIUM that portraits as these frivolous side considerations that they are, like the only moments that I had the only time I had to sort of like work on them was like either like airplanes or when I was like traveling somewhere or something. So I remember I painted Ruby in an art school cafe in Edinburgh, visiting like a friend in the university there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a really eureka moment as well. I really felt like a globe-trotting traveling artist when Ruby came together. There's something about like the intensity of the expression in her eyes and stuff, which was like a real breakthrough moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Which in my mind also put like a lot of the other portraits to shame, and it really made me want to go and revisit like older portraits, but on time. And then right next to it is the Collision Worship Archer portrait, which is one of the new portraits for the final cut as part of the Moralist quest line.
Mm-hmm.
You can get in contact with the airships that are sort of quietly patrolling the skies above the city. It's very ominous and silent presence, and you never quite get to see the sort of the human face of it either. You just get you're interacting with this person through a radio, and this person has also like completely subsumed themselves to the duty that they're doing. So you're not talking to whatever her name is, you're talking to the position that she represents.
Mm-hmm.
So the portrait itself is also like very distant from the human character, and so on. It's like uh, when I like found the moment to hide her face, the only like detail of her face into the radio microphone itself, I felt like, yeah, that clicked. It took a while to like really like search out the conceptual basis for this portrait, I guess. But then after that clicked, it was like another like 2 hours of like it's a very simple portrait to just kind of like sit down and draw it. It's, you know, like, I don't know, 20 minutes of work or something. If you really know what you're doing and you're just like, you know, putting down the marks. But the sort of like search for it afterwards was took like more hours and hours. But then the really like the moment where it like completely clicked and locked for me. This is very specific. This is like it's. I hope my mouse is visible. This
that one brushstroke.
The one brushstroke, just yeah. Like that's where it like. It's like, okay, pencils down. No, can't do anything more with this. Like now it's perfect. Which is, I don't know why that happens. Some like this is like a caprice of like an art or artist. Where there's like these moments when shit like this happens and locks and like something like you shouldn't change it anymore. The good thing has happened. Don't risk it.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, yeah. What I like about the airship archer portrait is again like it's like this abstract design that's holding it together, and like with the rest of them, they're all sort of different, but they also represent like very different characters. Like some of my own favorite ones, I think Idiot Doom Spiral is my favorite. It's this dude. Like there's something like it did the drunks, I think, also in like one go, and there's something about that sort of reality bleeding away from them, this intoxicated sort of thing. So like see into the characters. Like this allows you to this is something that doesn't come through in I don't know, using Unreal's that fake character creation thing, or that abstraction, that stylization. That's not this photorealism.
There's like this entire domain of meaning that can be tapped into and used in just like how an image is put together and what this reflects about the character. And one of the things that we did was oftentimes we try to bundle the characters together who share some sort of common theme or so. And the alcoholics were like all painted together, and they're like their main gist is that they have drink the drink and the world melts away from your head, and you're doing this like self-annihilation thing. So the sort of the structure and rigid like structure underneath which in painting terms is the drawing, is, you know, melting away now. And there's quite a few of these sorts of like things happening. One of the ones that kind of like crashed and burned was at one point we wanted to do all the drivers. So like Tommy Lahom and then Sealang and then Ruby as well, so that they would be modeled after their
driver's licenses.
Driver's license portraits.
I think we just have the racist one here.
Yes, the racist one. The racist one has the driver's license face, and Tommy has it. But then somehow by the time it was like Sealang and Ruby's turn, then so that's like sort of melted away somewhere. Sealang is just like parting around, and Ruby is in a very different place. And it kind of works because she's not, at that point, you aren't speaking to her as a truck driver, you're speaking to her as a very different person, a very different moment.
A VIP. I mean, yeah, it's cool to see like some of them, because like as we talked in another video, you also concepted most of the characters, and some of these characters I did the concepts for, and it's really strange sort of like to then see somebody else paint the portraits based off that concept. So like I use some kind of photo reference here or there. Some of the things were like completely invented, and then this is like that recently trending thing on social media, like draw this in your style. So you take somebody else's thing and then you repaint it. So this was like you discoed up like my drawings thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
like the smoker, for example, and Ruby as well, and this Renee here, which was my attempt to sort of like capture that thing. But I think it was also fairly early on when you were still looking for that like exact process.
Mm-hmm.
And
sort of one of the main things about the aesthetic was the use of like flats and stuff, and,
mm-hmm.
and not so much to rely on like soft edges. Yeah.
I mean, that was something that was really difficult for me to sort of like accept that I'm a really bad imitator. Like, but that came through like after trying a few of these. Like, okay, yeah, you know, I can do some prep work, but like you gotta push it over the finish line.
Mm-hmm. It's also super fun to see like all there's like a genre of fan art that exists for Disco Elysium where people do like self-portraits or like portraits of their friends or something in imitation of this like Disco Elysium portraiture style, which is whoa, that's some like you could put that in a bottle and call it some sort of an ism. This is very much a modernist tradition.
I mean, I tried to find one of their artists. Like, I actually wanted to commission my portrait from her. It's like she has this whole sort of like series. Like she does, I think, commission portraits in that style, and there's like referencing elements from the game. And it's like there was a couple photo. I don't know, was it like a wedding gift or something that made them look like a couple with Dolores Day above them. It's like the whole thing is cool. Okay, we talked about the character portraits and the style, but then we have skill portraits. Like this was not the original design, was it?
Oh man, it took us a while to arrive at the skill portraits through various dead ends and sort of like uninspiring ideas. Man, yeah. Like we wanted to do them at first as sort of like graphic shapes, almost like abstract graphics, or sort of lean into more into the
graphic design.
And yeah, the graphic design. It's your skill sheet. It's sort of more in the mathematical gameplay structures. That it existed more in the mathematical gameplay structure and design aspect of the game, and less in this like in world or less in this thematic realm of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then at some point like a breakthrough happened where it's faces. It has to be faces. We're good at making faces. We're good at making creepy, weird, melty faces and anatomy and stuff. And it's just it's pretty well known that humans are attracted to faces, and these are like meaningful for us. They grab our attention, and when something is said with a face next to it, what is being said is much more impactful.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to be some sort of like a face thing going on.
I mean, I really like these because I mean, let's set aside the fact that like it kind of changed the way you play the game, because like these things are actually like more characters than they would have been with these like simple graphic shapes, logos, let's call them. But like when the skills, like right now they sort of how to put it. They represent something more than just a name for a thing. It's not like one of my favorites. Two of my favorites, actually. I think this one was conceptualization and visual calculus.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are my favorites of the whole bunch. But it kind of represents not just the skill or like the activity of like exercising that skill, but it also the experience of like what it feels like. It's when you're doing something like that, it's lived experience, or I don't know. Like if we had a skill that was like drawing, then if it was represented in this fashion, like the way you figured out for this, then it wouldn't just be like drawing, but it would be look at it, you would get some kind of inkling of the feeling what it's like to draw, or something. I don't know. I didn't put it too well, but why I really like this approach.
There is so there's some sort of like you need to tap into some sort of a mystical, sensory, feeling-based like understanding of the thing, and like really that like non-language understanding of phenomena, sort of like put together like a visual image in your head. There was also like the skill portraits came together like incredibly quickly. It was basically like it was something like on the weekend, hung out with Robert, came up with the idea, yeah, this should just be like basic. Let's try some like cool abstract facial shit. Monday, show up at the studio, take a sketchbook, like go and like eat lunch in like a cafe and stuff. And then like by Tuesday evening, after a couple of lunches, like all the skills are like the basic shit and stuff, like, figured out by like stuffing food into my mouth or something. And then it was just like sit down and start painting. But yeah, sort of like the I don't know how to talk about how the visuals came together.
I mean, I guess that's also because this is why we're visual artists, not writers per se.
Yeah, this is sort of this is the art of painting, or like this is where the mystery happens.
So yeah, I don't know. I think we've reached the end of this portrait talk video thing. So let's call it a wrap. Thank you for watching, and see you around. Hi there. My name is Kaspar Rostov, and I'm from Studio Zone, the studio that brought you Disco Elysium and Disco Elysium Final Cut. And I'm here with Alexander Rostov.
Hi, I'm Alexander Rostov. I was principally the art director on Disco Elysium. And today we're going to take a look at some environments from the game.
And I was I guess you could say, the principal environment designer on the game. Even though early on, I think it was pretty evenly spread out. We were both working on trying to figure out how the game should look. But then you went off to focus more on like characters and the user interface, and then sort of we figured out the pipeline was that I would do the sketches, work with the 3D artist. We would bounce it back and forth, and then you would do the final painting and make it look disco.
Yeah, so I guess if you wanted to summarize it, it could be like the entire world of Disco Elysium has been drawn by Kaspar and then painted by Alexander.
Yeah, I'm the draftsman in this formula. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, like looking at this stuff. Because I never expected to be doing any kind of environment design or industrial design for any video game. So it early on it was like almost crippling, the anxiety that came with it. And then
Yeah, 'cause, like your background's in like figure studies and stuff.
yeah, I was like, I'm used to working from life and drawing, naked ladies. And then, yeah, like first assignment, draw a bunch of chairs and doors. It's like, okay, cool. It should fit this thematic thing. Here's some reference photos, but make it unique. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I grabbed my pencil and paper. I think I didn't have like a work computer then. And did some awful drawings, like without having any kind of idea what goes into this, like overthinking everything. And yeah, but then at some point, yeah, we got into the groove. And
I mean, the entire like process was a massive learning, let's say, opportunity for everyone involved.
Yeah, I still remember it. I remember the day when we were just talking about a similar subject, and you said something in the line of like, Zome is the best art school out there. And I have to agree, because it's like we jumped into the deep waters without knowing how to swim, and it's just like, learn or die.
Yeah.
But let's jump.
Let's look at some material.
Let's look at some material. Yeah, we picked a bunch of different types of images, and they're mostly different because we for the longest time we didn't have like a consistent way of doing things. So we just like shuffled around different tools and different methods. But I think this is a cool thing to start from, because it's one of like the earliest stages in starting to design a level, like doing thumbnails and like rough stuff after getting a brief from the writers. This is the doomed commercial area.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also like interesting because in those early stages, like for example, like this is what we ended up seeing in the game. That means that all of this was like cut away. Like initially, I was thinking like, yeah, you could go underground and there's like this dungeon crawling element, but it was sort of like distracting from the focus of the story. And Doom commercial area already is fairly like has a lot going on.
Yeah. This is the thing we sort of like ran up against quite a lot, especially earlier in the development, where we just like over-spec'd and over-designed, and like we just like I guess we had like a feeling of what might be like an appropriate video game level, or how much stuff should be there. And then like after the fact, kind of checking what is appropriate or like what's needed. Cut stuff there.
And like, so yeah, like, and for example, this looks at the top floors of the Doom commercial area, and that one's a mix of your drawings and my attempts at designing the thing. I think you had like a pretty rough layout in place, and for like the bookstore, which was like this small area, like I used the silhouette of the outside building, which was like fairly unique enough already and like interesting. But I think the next image I have here is it's back to the basement, but the second floor has a similar concept, like similar level of like detail and really overdone.
Yeah, but I mean, look at this. It's just like such a juicy image. It's just like.
I think I even tried to paint it afterwards, but like this was unnecessary, so I stopped quickly and I just handed it off to the modeler. And yeah, and of the different tunnels, I think there's an orb here that you can click on it, and it's like, yeah, something has collapsed here. It's like collapsed dreams of a beginner level designer. But yeah, like the whole area is like really dense. You get like these important story points, like this thing is important, this thing is important, this thing is important. Like, let's not talk about this thing. Oh, this one here, and like this one was supposed to be like this super secret area, and you can sort of like discover this hidden revolutionary era, like old bunker. And that's what's left of the dungeon crawling, essentially. And then soon enough, like I found my own sweet spot, which is just figuring out how people live, like how regular people live, like what makes them special. Everybody's like the protagonist in their own personal story. And just thinking about the environment, it's like if you walk into a room, like this isometric dollhouse view, in that sense, is really, really interesting, because like you really see a lot. And you could zoom in and zoom out a little bit in the game. So finding that nice balance between like interesting details and like general sort of clutter or lack of it. It's like the most interesting like mini game that I created for myself.
Yeah, so I feel like really one of the sort of like superpowers that you really brought to home is your sort of like uncanny attention to like domestic detail. It's like a little sock left drying somewhere, or like someone's like forgotten sweater, or like a way a book is left like on a windowsill or something. It's like very like well observed moments of life, basically.
I mean, this is, in some sense, this is where I came full circle and took my sort of experience as a figurative and realistic painter. Because what I used to do a lot is doing painting studies. So it's just like you pop up an easel, you sit down, you find like a pleasing composition, either plein air outside, or I would do studies in the rooms. And what I was interested in, like I wanted to, like as a painter, really get into this, like what does a room feel like when somebody has just left the room? Like try to capture something like the presence, some kind of human presence in a vacated room. Like, I don't know, like a dumb example is you step into a room and there's a cup of coffee or tea and it's still steaming. So, you know, in films you get like hunters go into the woods and they find a piece of shit and just like chew on it and like, this is still warm. Like it's a similar thing. Like there's wildlife here, but the same thing, but in an urban environment, basically. So yeah, that's when it became fun, and it was cool seeing how writers picked up on that as well. Because sometimes we'd get like really detailed briefs, and but more often than not, it was just like this general, like this character lives there. This is what they're like. Yeah. And with this image, it's turning back the clock a little bit further. As you can see, like there's no mood in this one. This is just like a detailed drawing for the 3D modeler to get some kind of exact rendering, too detailed for any kind of good use. It's also it's on a grid. That's really bugging me right now. Like,
yeah, isometric like invites you to draw on a grid. Is one of the most important things to keep in mind when you're kind of like working in isometric, is to like try and break out of that like box drawing mindset. Like, this is, I guess, especially relevant for us was like when we were doing the silhouettes of the rooms and stuff. It was very important not to get boxed in. Like boxes are like prison design. Like you want your if a place is alive, it needs to be shaped in a lively kind of way.
But it took the longest time to figure this out, that we don't have to stick to a grid. It's like naturally what we noticed at some point was that this sort of like beehive logic, because the camera looks from here, like the player looks at it from this angle. So like these are the sides that show the most information, but it doesn't mean that like you can't, like in the interior maps you use these to work with the silhouette, but yeah, like the stuff doesn't have to be at these angles, like this one and this one and this one. Like we could have built a pier that goes like this, or like curved, or like something like very, very much more interesting.
Yeah, I eventually got there. I wonder, can we take a moment and then find sort of like a zoomed out image of Martinez, the hexagon patterns thing that you just pointed out, hexa or octagon, is actually like got an interesting design principle that we discovered about isometric environments in general.
Keep talking. I'm gonna find this.
So I guess, yeah, it's because of the nature of like the isometric angle and the fact that you see the far away, the landscape turns into a wall on the distant sides. This has these inherent to the nature of it. It suggests creating these like little pockets of environment, I guess. Where you want to sort of like maximize the amount of verticality and flat area that you have, and this just like suggests it to become the shape. And if you like look at the world map for Disco Elysium, then you can like almost like eerily perfectly you can superimpose or lay over this like hexagon grid, and you can see that all the sort of like hub areas that you stay at or visit, they all sort of like conform to it.
Okay, I found it.
Here you go.
So like if we look at like this area, these are rough, and then this one corresponding to it. I like the same thing.
Hexagon.
No. Mine are octagons. Are they?
Octagons. I don't know. Whatever, they have this that geometric shape in general.
A polygon. So yeah.
So a very loose illustration of how this concept just like pops up, like because of the nature of how isometric suggests that you display things.
So essentially, like these sides are most active, and here you can display less information, and this area mostly works as a silhouette. Like this one is a good example where the bombed out part of the architecture is deliberately just almost like a black silhouette, essentially, and the action takes place inside this space. So sometimes they overlap a little bit, but like these became these active areas where the character would end up. Same thing, like you'd get a similar thing here in the fishing village, or here on the coast, like this area over here, then over here, And it was really interesting to like realize that at some point.
Yeah, this is something we discovered like after the fact when we were sort of like taking a moment to study the work done. It wasn't designed with this in mind or anything, but now it's sort of like a tool we have that we can keep in mind designing future environments.
I mean, I guess it was like unintentional. I don't know if it's a good thing in the long run, but it does seem like it sort of worked out. What happens if I close this one up? Okay, I have the lines there.
That's a really gray image.
This one? Oh yeah.
Do we have a colorful one?
Of this one?
Just like a next colorful image.
Next colorful image? It's this one. This one's like, again, like you get the similar
With the
shape.
political message.
It's a political message, very, very topical. But this is interesting because we went back to change this one, because early on this was just like a side street, like a passageway, like the character would run through this to get into the back courtyard of that area. But then, this wall became a thing. It didn't have a mural on it though.
Yeah, the wall. So the story of the wall is kind of funny. This was just like a liminal space to get from like the waterfront area to the back of the courtyard.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was just like this wall there. It just like happened to be in like kind of like the concept of the 3D. It was just this clean like big surface that when I like painted the backgrounds, just like I had a rare clean canvas where I could just like put some like juicy brush strokes and color and stuff down, and just like really enjoy like putting together like almost like an abstract painting in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Then basically like one day like Robert saw this in the game. It's just like, dude, this wall.
Yeah, and like the whole piece of side content just grew out of this thing.
Yeah, it sounds like Art Cop questline and stuff.
But what it meant was like before there was this, I don't know, just circular, boring old chimney, coal stack, and we needed space here for our characters. So this was like the practical consideration. But like I took this opportunity to just take this chimney that was literally just rectangles arrayed in a circle and arrayed vertically to create this vertical pipe made out of like little bricks, and lean heavily into environmental storytelling where this thing would like look interesting, like the silhouette is slightly more interesting, like there's stuff going on here, like down to like the little uneven like things and like negative space where you can like see the character run through underneath, and also like there's this ladder here, there's bricks with different patterns, different colors, weathering, like these steel bands holding this thing together from collapsing, and like different kinds of stones down here, some concrete patching up. So yeah, like really making this thing into something more interesting.
Mm-hmm. To sort of like create the necessary interest points. So if we actually do like make you stop at the wall and look at it, then the other stuff also helps to carry it, and not just the wall itself.
Yeah, it supports it. And so
yeah, but just in general, like in this sort of like isometric game, where your depth perception is always a little bit challenged because perspective doesn't converge and everything is sort of flattened into this plane. Then these foreground silhouettes get a heightened importance in general to make sure that they're sort of like interesting and really covering up like random aspects of random parts. The character that's kind of like walking behind them. It just brings everything to life so much more.
And like also lighting is extremely important. So in this next image, this is actually like personally for me an important concept, because this was not supposed to be in the game. This was my Sunday Sunday project or weekend project where I just wanted to create something in this disco vein, and was playing around with the silhouette somewhat unsuccessfully. Like these tiny lampshades, like they don't really do what I intended, but there's like pipes in the foreground and like small details and smaller and bigger details, like the character moves behind them. And I created a mock-up of this in Blender and played around with lighting just to get it to look interesting. In the end, you still ended up painting the whole thing. I wanted to do it myself just to prove to myself that I can, but I ran out of time. Probably I had to finish painting the 200 something inventory icons. So yeah, that's the story of this one. But there's also the thing, this is part of the Capeside apartments, which was supposed to be just 2 or 3 rooms, and I went a little crazy with this, and just writers had to write so much more content. In the end, I think it's not a bad thing, but feature bloat, content bloat, something like that. Not always
we ended
a good
up
thing.
we sort of it wasn't planned in such a way, but we ended up designing a world where pretty much every door that you see you can go into.
Mm-hmm.
And when we sort of became aware of this and then realized our own sort of obsession of making sure that you can go behind every door, sort of where the one more door that you cannot open, why this became very important for us as well.
To make sure
the game. There has to be the one door that you can't enter, because sometimes things are like this in life.
Okay, this image, the Ruby's hideout, the instigator's lair. Another interesting map. By this point, I had gotten really ambitious as sort of exploration designer, and was considering all these different sort of pacing and things you could do in an area. What made this area special, I guess, was the lighting, because it's underneath.
The light can get through in from the boardwalk above. The ceiling is this just planks.
Mm-hmm. And at every step, you're sort of aware that you've been walking across this thing tens, if not hundreds of times. It's very, very important area relating to the story. But again, I think the design brief was we needed this, and maybe a little bit of this, but the whole multiple passageways, a hidden area, and all that stuff was artistic liberties. And the character enters this area by going onto the rooftop of another building, of this huge building next to the boardwalk. And initially, I think the character was supposed to end up here. But again, thinking about pacing, I added this little nod towards one of my favorite games, Fallout, because it was just this Vault 15 moment where you descend into the vault for the first time. You gotta get a rope for the elevator, and you go down, and then you have to go down further, and there's some collapsed passageways. So I almost wanted to make the blackness here into that Fallout 1 blue. So it was a really cool one to work on.
So what strikes me about this image is the sort of level of shorthand that we ventured to use in our design. Because we're a fairly small team, and we all sort of know each other pretty well, and we can communicate in grunts and huffs and puffs, and most of the concept art of the game was done on napkins, really quick ballpoint pen, next to lunch or something. So especially compared to the very gray rendering of
this thing.
Yeah, super detailed drawing. Then here it's almost no detailed, little scaffolding. No,
I think
posts, the
holding up the boardwalk
beams, keep the boardwalk up and stuff. There's almost this Hanna-Barbera-esque cartoony stylization. And I remember we got into trouble with this because
I mean, our modeler was used to getting handed stuff like this. And
Well, I mean, not like completely, not always, but with this one, we like you Kaspar, with this one you crossed the line. and I remember like Rauno looked at it, was like, dude, what am I gonna do with this?
yeah, I think I overestimated like the mind reading abilities with this one, because like often it was like you said, it's just like Witcher length grunts and and like just putting in a few marks here, and the other one would like understand what we're talking about. But this one, I guess, was like a little too abstract. It is a rough thing. But it kind of, yeah, I liked it because again, for me, it conveyed the mood, and it was the closest thing to when I put it into the engine just to walk around on this plane. It was the closest thing to actually the final result, sort of. So in my eyes, it was like a really good shorthand image. Came together sort of quickly. It was like easy to iterate on.
Lessons learned in how to communicate and how the teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah. Okay, this image is what our renderer spits out. So we used a custom Blender render engine to sort of create all these different maps of an area. This is Kuno's shack, Kuno's throne room, and you get these like the height map. This is what tells the game engine basically like what's in front and what's behind something. Like interesting bit of corporate espionage before we started like making the game, was trying to figure this out. Like, how do you take a flat painting and put 3D characters on it and like make them stand behind a tree or something like that if the tree is painted into the background? It seemed impossible, but math.
It's math, yeah. We like got a lot of help in this because from checking out the development blog videos of Pillars of Eternity. They went into like some details and showed a little bit of like behind the scenes stuff. So it was like just sitting together with our technical artist Siim Raidma, just like really studying it and thinking like classic case of the Soviets trying to like reverse engineer what the United States the Americans have, like American engineers have come up with. Yeah, so we get like these sort of like renders from Blender, and then we can use them to illuminate the scenes in the game in real time, put lights on it and stuff. And these are also incredibly useful for me when I was painting over them. The very colorful one in the top right corner, for instance, is
the clown
affectionately known as the clown pass, which is like every object has its own randomly generated color. So it's very easy for you to in Photoshop kind of like select this color range, and then you mask it out. So it's very easy to color in the lines. You don't even have to pay attention to it. The computer does all the hard work for you.
And it also allows me to be like really expressive with just like a big splash of paint or a big brushstroke that sort of unifies some like smaller details.
Yeah, so it allows you to do this like video game art using some techniques that you might have like used in art school, where you tape up your canvas to get like safe covered areas, so you can really like fuck around with a certain type of like paint or texture or something. It's the same principle, but like applied to the background art in the game. But there's also a folly of youth here, when we were all but young men dreaming.
This one?
Yeah, the photo textures. Like for various reasons, we really thought that we needed to texture the scenes beforehand in the beginning.
Yeah,
we had like all sorts of
experimenting with like Substance Painter and Quixel and 3D Coat and like trying out like what works best. And in the end, it was just like flat color.
Flat color works the best, yeah. It was a very painful, slow lesson to learn, and then we did these textured maps for like quite a few environments before we stopped doing them. But what happens is you have to paint over everything. You just have to paint out the photo texture, and it doesn't really give you anything. It doesn't really like do anything. It's just like more like annoying kind of like work. And
I mean, what was really annoying was like going back after the fact to remove like the bump textures from the normal maps. Oh my god, that was like, and it was difficult to spot them. So sometimes like a year after an area was finished, and going like, there's some noisy stuff still in here.
Sometimes in the game you can still see this somewhere, I'm sure, if you shine a flashlight on something and the surface is like very gravelly looking.
Yeah.
And that's just like a bump map that we didn't take out.
I think we got most of it out. But yeah, you might be right. Like there might be some places with that old normal maps in there. But yeah, like it was like quadruple difficult, because what it meant was we had to like render it again, and sometimes we'd make like small changes, or the server would blow up, and fun times. And this is the thing that the engine sees, so to speak. Like every square represents a 4K resolution square from the game. Although I think this is the virtual textures.
Yeah, this is the how virtual texture packs images together. So it's sort of like all the work painted gets like split up by the computer into this big puzzle sheet, basically. So as you're walking around the game, the computer is sort of like puffing and running up ahead of you and trying to like put the image together from these kinds of pieces.
So it's like just outside the camera range, it's streaming in data and like assembling the world outside, which is conceptually holds with ELYSIUM, which is awesome. Okay, but I think we got to this part where we can sort of talk a little bit about like the genesis of every individual map. This one is the underground reading room, which is like brand new content for the Final Cut version of the game. I could ramble on, but it was actually you that did the concept for this.
Yeah, so this was basically, concepted by me as well. The top right one there with the white drawing on the black. This was sort of the first thumbnail sketch for this area, trying to put on the bigger like symbols, elements, figure out the composition and the shape of the room and the thematic points or the little thematic inspirations that inform the design of this place. So what it's because the what happens in the game is this is like an abandoned part of like a building where the sneaky communist students come and read their sneaky communist literature and discuss it and get into like petty fights and stuff. So the visual language here is inspired by sort of like this early 20th century Russian like futurist constructivist
This
art.
stuff.
Yeah, so this is Ilya Jasnik, one of my favorite artists whose work I keep coming back to, and it's like mesmerizing stuff. Really like, pure geometric shapes, but aligned into these striking compositions. Just like as images, they're like wonderfully strong and really like really impactful, I guess. But so I guess on the right one you can kind of see the reliance on sort of like these rectangular shapes, these squares and stuff, and flanks and stuff. And this was sort of mirrored intentionally in the underground reading room, where the tarpaulin and the scaffolding bits there, which are sort of like abstractly floating in the air. The sort of shape language there is all in reference, at least in my mind, in reference to like Ilya Jasnik and the compositions of like the early idealist communists. But then at the same time, of course, communism only is 0.0000001% ever been built. It's like a construction site, never to be finished, and like abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's also the sort of like, as you're trying to build this like improbable structure, there is the gaping maw, the whole.
It's like the
just like
result of the shelling.
Mm-hmm. Waiting for you to, make one mistake, just like fuck up just a little bit, and you're gonna fall in, and they're never going to climb out of that again.
Yeah, being an artist is a precarious position.
Yes, this is what it feels like to be an artist.
Okay, yeah. Earlier I numbered like so. This was like your early thumbnail. No, this was already slightly more developed, and like this is some kind of intermediary thing.
Mm-hmm. Just trying to get like a little bit more clear of what the shapes are and what like the wall is and kind of stuff, but not really getting into like full concept artist mode yet. Yeah,
but I was like surprised that like this was pretty much the thing that you handed off to our modeler. So the next thing after seeing these doodles, it was I saw this thing. So like a test render with the lighting and like the main elements of the thing. And this is something that I would do with you. And this time it was just reversed. Like you sent me this thing and I would add notes. And the way I do it is I would paint over it. So you can like sort of blend between those two and like try to figure out what changed. But what I was thinking about here was like using the front sides of the polygon, so to speak, like adding this scaffolding here and like using the adding some furniture and some elements here that could work just as silhouettes, and also like making this area slightly more interesting, like some variation here. So again, when the characters walk in like behind that thing, it's sort of differentiate between more clearly what's in front and what's behind.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put lights in here, like you have these multiple layers. So you have like this stuff, then you have like the boxes here. There's some kind of shelf. There's more scaffolding behind that, and behind that the cloth, and behind that the gaping maw. So like it's like multiple things in front of each other, and if the lighting is right, it sort of circumvents the lack of perspective of this isometric sort of view.
Mm-hmm.
And here as well, like this shape.
So is that shape.
But I would also add like notes. This was something that I think I did on the bus. So hence the really wonky handwriting. Should make a font out of this. Just for posterity's sake, because inside a studio we could just show each other stuff and explain what we were thinking about. And I really overdid it with the slightly more complex layered board action. But enough of that stuff. Like, let's talk about painting.
So here's like an example of how it's like to paint when you don't have photo textures underneath.
Mm-hmm.
You can just put down like almost like watercolor or like these loose washes of color information, and this is sort of used together with like a black and white, very like a gentle diffuse render of the environment. So there's just like this ambient occlusion. It's basically an ambient occlusion render. So there's like a little bit of the drawing of the scene. So I could start putting like color underneath it. And then it's just like you keep painting. You start like you get more concrete with the shapes and stuff. do more like you start differentiating things, like doing a temperature shift between what is a wall and what is like a ground surface, putting in like texture stuff. Then you just like keep going into like from bigger shapes to like smaller shapes as you like start defining what is the specific color of like objects and stuff. But it's all like painted also in this very kind of like subjective style, really appropriate for the game and how our main character perceives the world and so. And so that sometimes like it can be like, just like quite difficult to pick out what is the exact color of some object, because they aren't even like painted, or that is not the thing that's being really thought about.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the sort of like the color temperature and the overall kind of feel and how the environment comes together.
Mm-hmm. I mean, also like lighting affects this, but while we were talking, I was like blending in the different layers of paint as it progresses. But like the final touches would be like these like solid painterly brushstrokes.
Mm-hmm.
Like slightly more saturated color here and there, like this blue here really like brings it together.
Yeah, so it's all about that blue.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredibly pleasant way to paint, where it's like lean on the warms a little bit too much, and then in the very end you just put like a little bit of blue.
And this is the same thing. So from this. To this. This is so we give you an overview of how you can start with a sketch and end up with the finished map in a game like Disco Elysium.
Yeah.
So
brief look of how the sausage is made.
Thank you for watching, and see you around.